Now to the major story unfolding overseas, a Boeing 737 passenger jet crashing off Indonesia. The tower losing contact just 4 minutes after takeoff.
Boeing 737 passenger jet disappeared from radar today, minutes after taking off from Jakarta.
Indonesian authorities are examining these cables and a fragment of someone's jeans found by fishermen today.
On the 29th of October 2018, 189 people were killed in a Boeing aircraft crash in Indonesia 13 minutes after its takeoff. But that's not all. 6 months later, another Boeing aircraft scheduled for an international passenger flight from Ethiopia to Kenya crashed 6 minutes after its takeoff, causing the deaths of yet another 157 people on board.
Breaking news, an Ethiopian Airlines flight has crashed shortly after takeoff from Addis Ababa.
Ethiopian Airlines flight crashed outside of Ethiopia's capital yesterday, killing all 157 people on board.
I would wish that I was there with them. Today, I do live to keep their memories alive.
Since then, Boeing has been trying to get back on track, but its efforts have had major malfunctions, and recently, Boeing came close to yet another catastrophe that we will uncover later in this video. In the past 5 years, Boeing has faced unparalleled scandals regarding commercial flight safety. But how did this happen? And can the aviation giant be trusted? Stay tuned as we uncover how the downfall of Boeing began. But before we do, please like and subscribe to the channel. It all started in 2017 when a former Boeing employee named John Barnett began raising concerns about the firm's production and a haphazard safety culture at Boeing.
From day one, it's just all been about schedule and hurry up and just get it done, push the planes out, we're behind schedule. You know, we don't have time to worry about issues that y'all bring up.
John Barnett worked for Boeing as a quality manager for more than 30 years before retiring in 2017 on health grounds. And since then, he has started releasing these allegations against Boeing.
He never wanted to try to bring Boeing down or hurt. That was the least of his agenda.
Vicky Stokes' son, John Barnett, spent more than 3 decades working at Boeing.
Initially, he loved Boeing.
Yes.
Now, John had previously claimed that managers at Boeing had routinely ignored formal procedures to build planes as quickly as possible. Not only that, John provided more detail on these allegations since his departure from Boeing and also took legal action against the company.
What kind of problems did he tell you that he noticed in the factory?
Quality issues, procedures that wasn't being followed, shortcuts that was trying to be taken.
In support of his legal complaint, he claimed that he'd been denigrated, humiliated, and treated with scorn by other senior members, and that they had subjected him to a continuous gaslighting campaign and made his work environment a difficult one as a result of his actions. Here's where it gets interesting. As John claimed that he was retaliated against for raising safety issues internally, Boeing denied every one of his statements at the time. However, there's even more. You see, the allegations John made against Boeing were quite serious, and one of the most important parts of his claims was that Boeing tried to eliminate quality inspections at a plant that makes its 787 planes. Additionally, he said he had uncovered serious problems with oxygen systems, which could mean 1 in 4 breathing masks would not work in an emergency. Is that outrageous? Well, it gets even better. In March 2024, John, who was a former quality control manager and now turned whistleblower, was found dead just before he was about to resume testimony against the aircraft giant. Now, this sparked a huge uproar amongst the public because when his body was found, that was the same day he was to provide enough evidence against Boeing after alleging that under pressure, workers were deliberately fitting substandard parts to the aircraft on the assembly line, and that Boeing had this deep-rooted and persistent culture of concealment.
15 workers, none of them would fly on it. But going back to John Barnett, guys, so as we all know, Boeing planes have been falling apart. The doors have been flying off. Tires are falling off. By the way, mid-flight, just yesterday, Airlines Flight 830 from Sydney to SFO started leaking fuel, and somebody recorded it.
Do you blame Boeing?
I think if this hadn't gone on so long, I'd still have my son. My sons would still have their brother.
But hold on a second. Why was it that John was found dead the exact day he was to release strong evidence against Boeing? Is Boeing trying to hide something? Well, there's more to uncover. Let me explain. Even if Boeing denied all of John's allegations, a review made by the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, and the Department of Justice did uphold some of John's concerns, and the DOJ found out that Boeing had conspired to defraud the FAA during their investigation, meaning they had attempted to cover up their failures and had not engaged with the federal government agency honestly. Now, all of these allegations could be linked back to the crashes that happened 6 months apart in 2018, and these inevitable crashes that would take the lives of people were what John warned the company about, of which he claimed that Boeing didn't listen, but was rather bent on pushing more planes out to make more profit. However, these crashes alone resulted in 387 of Boeing's airplanes being grounded. And as for the criminal offense Boeing committed against the FAA, the company was criminally charged and made to pay over $2.5 billion in fines. As this information about the company got leaked, it kept on drawing the attention of the public, and reports like Boeing built unsafe planes and blamed the pilots when they crashed now negatively impacted how the company was viewed by the public, and people began to see how unsafe Boeing is.
Much of Boeing's manufacturing has become outsourced, and now Boeing is kind of backtracking and saying, okay, maybe that was a little bit too much, especially when it comes to the maker of their fuselages.
Now listen, before these events began for Boeing, the company had always been known for its massive success in the airplane industry and has held a strong position for a long time, battling its rivals. Interestingly, Boeing is also known for making huge bets, which have solidified its top spot today and have maintained its long success in the aviation space. In order to eliminate its rivals, Boeing says that it plans to develop its Dreamliner fleet of planes, which would create a $2.8 trillion market for commercial airplanes over the next 20 years. You see, Boeing has had a long-standing dominance battle with another company called Airbus, which is also its biggest competitor, and with the plans the company has, it's possible the company can cement its dominating position. What's more fascinating to know is that Boeing gambled in the past on a smaller, fuel-efficient plastic jet that could fly longer, non-stop routes, and this jet is part of its 787 fleet. I mean, that bet has so far paid off, with its customers attracted to promises of a 20% increase in fuel efficiency, 30% fewer maintenance costs, and an unprecedented range for a mid-size airplane of just 8,000 miles. This distance is equal to the diameter of the Earth at the equator, and all of these planes that were promised would allow airlines to fly fast-growing, non-stop routes between the United States, Asia, and Europe. And yes, the 787 program was a success, as the company received 1,915 orders and made 1,127 deliveries with no fatalities or hull losses. However, its plans in the past have allowed the business to become so successful. I mean, Boeing was the first aerospace enterprise in history to reach $100 billion in annual sales, and the numbers keep on going. But wait, there's more.
In 1919, Eddie Hubbard and I took a flight up to Vancouver, BC. This was the first international mail ever carried by plane into the United States.
At some point, Boeing had been called the greatest innovator in aerospace history. But how is that possible? We can answer that if we go back to 1916, when Boeing was first founded by a man named William Boeing. And as of then, the company started as a small airplane manufacturer. And then in 1960, Boeing began to diversify its offerings in the aerospace industry and began the manufacturing of helicopters, spacecrafts, military aircrafts, and missiles. And these efforts made the company earn its top spot in aviation as it quickly grew and became a major player in the aviation industry. Boeing grew so much that virtually almost every major airline in the world uses Boeing's aircraft for its transportation, as well as that Boeing dominated so much that these airlines would mostly favor Boeing, which means passengers may end up flying them frequently.
If you've flown, you've likely flown at some point in your life on a 737. It's one of the most commonly used aircraft by airlines around the world.
The company was able to capture the hearts of its passengers, and everyone flying Boeing loved them. But it doesn't stop there. Boeing has been a major contributor to space exploration, having built the Saturn V rocket that took astronauts to the moon and currently being a key partner in the Space Launch System for future missions. But despite the huge success Boeing has had in the past and even currently, the Boeing 737 MAX crisis was a significant issue that impacted both Boeing and the global aviation industry. I mean, this crisis is one that has affected it negatively, and the company has experienced a huge setback since the beginning of the crisis.
Unfortunately, the company has struggled mightily with manufacturing, and we've had over 20 production quality defects. It's hard to keep up with all of them.
After multiple investigations were made into what could have caused these crashes, it was later discovered that the crashes were attributed to a software system known as the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, MCAS, which was designed to automatically adjust the plane's angle of attack to prevent stalls. Following the discovery, it was later known that the MCAS system was flawed and that Boeing had not provided adequate training to pilots on how to handle the system in emergencies. Since the release of this information concerning the crashes, Boeing has been experiencing significant financial implications, with the company reporting a loss of $636 million as a result of the grounding of the 737 MAX. But wait, there's more. Boeing hasn't only lost millions of dollars. Its stock, whose all-time high was in 2019 before the MAX 8 crash, has now plummeted by 25% so far in 2024.
The aviation giant found itself under scrutiny with 2 consecutive court hearings on Capitol Hill. In the first hearing, aviation experts testified before Congress to address Boeing's safety issues. The second hearing featured a whistleblower alleging that Boeing hurried production, resulting in improperly bonded fuselage sections.
The company has lost billions to lawsuits from the DOJ and FAA, totaling over $2.5 billion, which included a $500 million fund to compensate the families of the 346 victims of both 737 MAX crashes. It's now getting so bad because the 737 MAX, which is Boeing's best-selling airplane, is not selling as fast as it should since the beginning of the scandals. And now Boeing is experiencing one of the toughest times in the history of its existence.
They need to really take a look at their balance sheet. They've bought back so much stock, they have negative shareholders' equity. They've got $54 billion in short and long-term debt.
Now Boeing is struggling so hard with its manufacturing process, and there's been an increasing number of product quality defects for the company. But as the company's trying to get back on its feet, something unbelievable happened with the 737 MAX planes again during a flight. On January 5, 2024, the door plug of a commercial Boeing 737 MAX 9 blew off in an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 plane at 16,000 feet, which happened shortly after it took off from Portland, Oregon.
The Justice Department is looking into the door plug blowout incident on an Alaska Airlines flight last month.
The incident alone is not just shocking, but also scary because 7 passengers and a flight attendant sustained minor injuries.
4 bolts holding the door plug in place were missing at the time of the incident because there was no damage to the plug where those bolts were supposed to be.
Investigations revealed that 4 bolts that held the door plug in place were missing, and this caused the disaster that happened midair. Now, the airline is suing Boeing for $1 billion, and these also led the FAA to intensify its investigations into Boeing's manufacturing process. And now, 171 of Boeing's 737 MAX 9 airplanes are grounded. But isn't this the only time such a catastrophe's happened mid-flight? Very recently, a scary footage captured the moment flames shot out of a Boeing engine just as it was about to take off, with 450 passengers on board. However, this is not the only incident concerning a Boeing engine catching fire mid-flight in 2024. But what could be wrong with the aviation giant? Are we here to see the downfall of Boeing? Some experts now say Boeing has a big problem and the business could further decline, while others say Boeing should design slightly larger planes to address the 737 MAX issues. However, one question remains. Could Boeing still be trusted if it gets back on track? Well, there's always more to find out. If you think John Barnett's incident is a result of Boeing trying to conceal secrets only John can prove, then don't forget to share your thoughts in the comment section below. Boeing has faced huge scandals concerning the aircraft safety, and it doesn't appear like these issues will stop anytime soon, as many may say the company has lost its way. But what do you think? Could the company survive? If you enjoy this video, please share your support by liking and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you on the next one.